Taryn's gotta go. Oh, 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 oh. She has got to go. She has got to go. Now Joe, and when Rosanna said she got a party, she did not invite her. And when Rosanna said it's the party, the FBI don't lie her. Taryn went into the party, she wrecked the whole thing higher. I got you, Joe. I gotta tell you, Joe. Joe, oh, 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 oh. Taryn's gotta go. Oh, Joe, oh, 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 oh. She has got to, Joe. Oh, 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 oh. Taryn's got to go. She's got to go, or the party will die. She's gotta go. You gotta kick her out. There's got to be a purge for us to be heard. Unblock me. Jesse from Jupiter is a fat, ugly swamp creature. She can't report the channel. She can't report the channel. Who's Jesse from Jupiter? I mean, who could I be referring to? Ugly as fuck. Fat, ugly fuck. Idea Swamp is a subhuman male. It's a subhuman male, not even human. The most disgusting abomination of all time. Guys, here's a tip. When I grow to a certain level, you know, I'm gonna randomly just come at all of these old enemies. Like, when I get to like 5,000 concurrent viewers, I'm just gonna stop the stream midstream and just go on tirades. Randomly. They'll never see it coming. Nothing will trigger it. Nothing. I will very much abuse my clout. 1000%. Y'all know something that really grinds my gears? OnlyFans girls calling us misogynist incels. Saying, hi, you're building a following of incel misogynists. I'm like, excuse me. What following have you built on your OnlyFans? Are those women respecters who are paying $5 to see some titties? Is that a woman respecter? Sorry. Are those sexually satisfied males? Are those males that are getting pussy that they're paying $5 to see some titties? I mean, can we just be like honest here? Like who the incel following really is? Where does it really lie? It's your fucking subscribers on OnlyFans, right? As you're building a following of misogynists. Okay, let's take a quiz of every male that's subscribed to your OnlyFans, and let's see if they are indeed woman respecters. Let's see if they respect women. By the way, guys, everyone wants to know why the stream's late. Why is the stream late? Because you didn't like the stream. It's that simple. If you don't like the stream, I will delay it by 5 minutes for every one vote and non-like. I will literally delay the stream. I will literally delay the whole fucking thing. I will literally shut it all down. The whole thing. All you had to do was like the stream. You didn't like the stream yesterday, we skipped the stream. We skipped the stream because I don't play around. We're doing a guerrilla roll call. We're doing a guerrilla roll call because y'all are not just spectators here. You're in a cult. You do have an obligation and a duty to follow orders. This is a cult. This is not some... We are the unique YouTube stream. Every other YouTube streamer is like, oh, I'm just chilling. No, we're not just chilling here. We're not just chilling. You don't just chill here. Nobody's just chilling here, okay? This is a cult. This is a... When you tune into this stream, it's like enlisting into the military. You can only get dishonorably discharged. There's no way out. There's no way out but death in a video game. There's no way out. As soon as you click this video, we don't have curious people here, okay? We don't have people who are like, oh, I just want to see what this Haas guy is all about. No. No, when you tune into a live stream, you are already in the cult. There's no way. There's no way to leave either, except through death in a video game. As soon as you click the stream. And that means you follow all orders. So we're gonna test this out. I want to see this chat in particular. I want to see everybody. I want to see some red square. I want to see a combination of gorillas and tanks. I want to see a gorilla tank formation column, red square parade for Pride Month. Go ahead. Mongolian Pride Month. Go ahead. What a fucking pathetic display. This is a pathetic display. It's not even moving that fast. It's not even... Get it good. Faster! Faster! I'm whipping you! Ta! 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 I'm whipping you. You're being whipped. Faster! March faster! Alright, keep doing this, and I'm gonna go comb my hair. All right. Now, before we begin the stream, there's something else I demand from the chat. So we're going to do some self-criticism today, okay? And by self-criticism, I mean I'm going to be criticizing you on your behalf. I'm going to be doing a self-criticism for you, chat, okay? Because yesterday was fucking pathetic. Yesterday was fucking pathetic. All right? Now, I was about to start the stream. All I told the chat was, there's a 100-person gap between the votes and the likes. Close that gap by 50, okay? And the like counter would move so slowly. It was so pathetic. I said, you know what, guys? If you don't show some effort here, we're not going to stream tonight. We're not going to stream tonight. And nobody did. Nobody did anything. The lazy, fake guerrilla army did nothing. Pathetic. And y'all thought I was bluffing. No, we rescheduled the stream to today. Okay? I was not bluffing. Now, let me reiterate something. When the Khan tells you to close the gap, you don't just sit on your ass with your thumb in your ass, just sitting there waiting around. And if you already liked, you go call your mother and like it. Call your siblings to like it. Call your cousins. If your grandma's asleep, even if she's on her deathbed and she only has 3 hours to live, you wake her ass up. Wake up your grandma to like the stream. If you got relatives in prison, you drive down to that prison. You tell them, hey, yo, uncle, use that contraband smartphone you got to like this stream. You don't got no excuses. Everybody you know, Facebook, Twitter, everything. You get everybody you know to like it. You put effort. It ain't enough for you just to like the stream. You got to get people to like the stream when I tell you to like the stream. You understand? This ain't a joke. What are y'all, a bunch of lazy bums? Attention. Get your ass up. Stop fucking sleeping on the job. Bunch of lazy ass motherfucking gorillas. This ain't fucking gorilla sleepy hour. Y'all think what? You guys really think you just here to chill? You think you're here to... When you tune into this stream, you are part of my cult. You are part of my cult. You must follow orders or you get permabanned. There's no in between. This is a cult. If I say type 1s in the chat, everyone who types 2 is getting permabanned. That's what level we're on, okay? This is scary. This is a cult. This is the worst cult you've ever seen in your life, okay? We don't play around here. This is worse than the military. This is worse than boot camp. You follow orders. You do what the Khan says. The slightest dissent, I will squash you like a bug with no problems. No problems whatsoever. This is an army. This is a cult. This is not an open society. This is not George Soros' open society. This is a cult. Okay? This is a cult. I'm here to brainwash everyone. It's a hive mind. You understand? It's a hive mind. So by the way, every gorilla should have 500 alts minimum on every social media platform. YouTube, Discord, Twitter, Facebook, everything. Every gorilla should have 500 alts. Now everybody stretch your arms out, snap your fingers. Start snapping your fingers. And I can tell who's doing it, who's not doing it with psychic energy. Snap your fingers. Snap your fingers. I want everybody to be snapping their fingers. Keep snapping those fingers. Keep snapping them. Keep snapping those fingers. Keep harder, harder, snap them harder. Because y'all know what we're doing right now. We're summoning some goddamn content in this bitch. You understand? We're summoning some goddamn content in this bitch. Okay? Here I am. Here I am. I'm red like Mr. Krabs. I'm red like Mr. Krabs. And my hair is looking awfully suspicious, but it's looking expeditious. You understand? I'm red like Mr. Krabs. His dry ass hair. Red like Mr. Krabs, one with the sun. I got it beside me like I'm on the run. Okay? Okay. Okay. We red out here. Yeah. What the hell? Base. Johnny! What the hell? What's going on in this bitch? Partner? God damn! Oh, shit! That's a whole nother red.
One Zizek.
We got those reds in the building. That red text font color. You know it's... Oh, shit! Another one. There we go with that red. Check. Now I'm seeing red, ladies and gentlemen. We red in this bitch. We got the red text. We got the red everything. By the way, nobody showed this video to Dugan because he's going to be like, this guy's retarded. Okay? Because this is going to be a serious stream. This is going to be a serious stream. Okay? Thank you so much, Menage and Anti-Sterner, for making it red in this bitch. Okay? We red in this bitch. We got the Mr. Krabs in this bitch. We got a red 10 in this bitch. Okay, we got an orange. We got an orange. Good morning, revolution. Good morning, revolution. Good morning, revolution. Made it orange in this bitch. We're making it orange in this bitch. Where's the... There. Oh, it's red. Okay. Okay.
Good morning, revolution.
Okay. Okay, that's red. That's red. Good morning, revolution. Thank you, Junkie. We got it going on. How y'all doing? I'm feeling fantastic. I'm feeling fantastic. I've been feeling so good for some reason in the past week. I've been getting sleep. I've been out in the sun. I've been... you know, doing my thing. I've been reading.
Good morning, revolution.
Good morning, revolution, Amirio. Good morning. I've been having a good time, guys. I've been sleeping. I've been reading a lot. I've been reading a lot and writing a little too, but you know, I'm getting my mind stimulated again, doing the things I love, which is what this is all about. And we're gonna have a banger ass stream today, which is gonna be like super serious too. And it's going to be so serious, I'm going to get a timestamp as soon as I start the lecture, you know, just so people can skip to that. Thank you, EJ. Good morning, revolution. Good morning, revolution, EJ.
Good morning, revolution.
Good morning, revolution, Atari. Good morning, revolution. Good morning, revolution. It's a beautiful solar Friday in Eurasia, in Eurasia, America, Eurasian America. It's a beautiful solar Friday in Eurasian America, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I welcome the heat wave. I welcome this heat wave. This is a beautiful heat wave. Good morning, revolution. AR. I welcome the heat wave. I'm pro heat wave, 1000% all the way pro heat wave, okay? I'm a pro heat wave type of guy, okay? And that's just a fact. That's just a fact. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna blow my nose. Give me a goddamn sec.
Based.
For the Dugan plane ticket and hotel fund.
I saw that. Don't worry, I'm gonna replay. Oh shit! Anti, what the hell? Janar. Thank you, Janar. We're being red as hell here.
For the Dugan plane ticket and hotel fund.
Damn, anti-Sterner. Thank you, Janar, but anti-Sterner with another red one.
I toss hot wings in the heat wave.
That's what red looks like to me. That's like what red looks like to me. Ladies and gentlemen, that's some seeing red if I ever saw any myself. You understand what I'm saying? Ah! I sound retarded. All right, my sweet little bumblebees. We're going to have a banger-ass lecture stream today with minimal reacts. I don't know if there's anything I actually want to react today at all. I am trying to think if there's anything on Twitter I wanted to react to. Anything at all on Twitter that I wanted to show you. I'm trying to think. Let me go through my shit. See if there's anything on Twitter that I wanted to tweetle at you. No. No, there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing at all. There's nothing at all. Oh, I'm gonna approve. I'm gonna promote something. Why not? I'm gonna do it. Fuck it, I'll do it. Thank you, Chris.
Here is $5 to spend at the Donetsk anime store.
Chris, I will not be spending that $5 in that way. Here's something I'm gonna show y'all, because I'm gonna go ahead and support an old friend of the show, and this is Enigma. And guys, Enigma wrote a book. Okay, Enigma wrote a book. And it's on Amazon. You can get it, you know. Matter of fact, I'll retweet it. So if you're interested in his book, there it is, right? And, you know, if it interests you, you know, read the description, see if it interests you. But that's Enigma. He wrote a book. Pretty interesting. That guy is interesting fellow. He's an interesting fella. He helped set up our website. So I owe it to him, right? He helped set up the website. So that's Enigma. Enigma. Sir Enigma.
Good morning, Revolution.
Good morning, Revolution, Cyrus. Good morning, Revolution. Good morning, Revolution. We got an orange in the building. We got an orange in the building. Some refreshing vitamin C. Okay. We got some refreshing orange vitamin C. Bow. See how I predicted it? Thank you, Light.
So what criteria have to be satisfied for a secession/self-determination movement to be legitimate? Your views on Taiwan, Kashmir, and Crimea are known, but what are your views on Western Sahara, Catalonia, Quebec, Hawaii, etc.?
I support the Sahrawi. The Sahrawi. What's that song? I'm listening to that song again. Sarwahi. What is that damn song that I liked? It goes dun 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 yeah, Ya Sahrawi, Ya Sahrawi. It goes like that. What's that song? Someone give me that song. I'll play it right now. I don't give a fuck. I can afford the copyright DMCA shit where it demonetizes the video because I made a decent amount already. So we can listen to some music. Give me that song, the Sahrawi song. Promethean! We're seeing red in this bitch. We're seeing red in this bitch. Let me listen to a few. Oh man, what is that song? I think it is this woman. Yeah, this is it. 1000% this is it. This is it. This is it. Don't ask me how I found this song. I don't know how I found it, but I just remembered it. Because that shit you asked me. This is the song. Okay. Okay. It's a heat wave in this bitch. It's a heat wave in this bitch. We red as hell in this bitch. Imagine if instead of dancing, people just enjoyed music like this. I'm a little shy to dance. I gotta get out of my comfort zone. I'm blushing a little bit. See how red my face is? I'm not gonna sing, sorry. Listen, if the Moroccans are mad, y'all give me a better song than this. You can't, so you lose. I'm sorry. I support this independence movement because they have better music. Sorry. And maybe if y'all's king stop supporting Israel, that would help too. All right. It's going to be so hard to transition into the lecture, but I brought it on myself, okay? To be fair, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but not impossible, right? It's like, how do I segue from where we're at now into the lecture that we're going to get into? Because I have a lot on my plate to share with you. No joke. Guys, another funny thing. Here's something kind of funny. Isn't it funny how us Pat Socks are like, we're like the most cultured people. We got culture. We got taste. We got spicy food. I was just eating some Ethiopian spicy beef because they was all out of lamb, so I had the beef instead. By the way, I decided I am marrying into Ethiopian. I'm not marrying an Arab woman. I'm marrying an Ethiopian woman, and it's just gonna become I'm gonna like become part of the Ethiopian culture. Like, my kids will only marry Ethiopians too. So I will be the only outsider in the lineage. And then eventually the Lebanese will be gone. I'm changing to Ethiopian. I'm going to be the Rachel Dozezo of Ethiopia. Except I'm actually going to do for real because I'm marrying into the culture. Okay? I swear I dreamed I swear I dreamed that I had an Ethiopian wife. I swear I had this dream years ago. It will happen. It will happen. It will happen. It will happen. Okay? I dreamed about it. It's going to happen. Greek. I like Greek too. I like Greek people.
For the Khan's Ethiopian Food Fund.
See, thank you, Johnny. I like Greek people, but I feel like everything in the Mediterranean is just a weaker version of Ethiopian. I feel like Ethiopia is like the original thing, and everything else is just a corruption from that. You know what I mean? I feel like Ethiopia is where it's at. That's the real shit, you know? Also, one of the reasons I cannot marry into Greek, I'm Afro-Asiatic. I'm Afro-Asiatic.
Based.
Since you're going to marry an Ethiopian woman, what are your thoughts on the Tigray War?
I'm behind Ahmed Abiy in his holy war against the foreigners, against the Egyptians, against the Americans. Holy war for Orthodox Ethiopia. That's my view. Mengistu will return, but for now, Abiy Ahmed. But after that, Mengistu will come back. But this Mengistu will be a Maoist Mengistu, not a Soviet revisionist one. That's my view. What is this shirt? This is a red shirt to reflect my red complexion and my red solar embrace. Because this is a Eurasian Friday, a solar Friday, okay? This is a solar Friday. This is a Eurasian Friday. So that's why I'm wearing this shirt, okay? Some guy says, I can't wait to listen to this later. Peace. No, sit your ass down. You're listening to it now. You can't listen to it later. Who the fuck are you to come in? Imagine walking into a live act. Okay, y'all get the hypocrisy. Y'all see the disrespect. Y'all see the disrespect. Imagine you walk into a lecture of a professor, an esteemed professor who's got a doctor name in front of them. You walk into the lecture hall and you go, I can't wait to watch this later. And then you storm out. You disrespectful motherfucker. How dare you? I'm a motherfucking doctor, okay? I'm Dr. Haas. Thank you, Irish
Thoughts
American.
on Igbo nationalism and the greater Biafran nationalist movement?
I don't know anything about that, but someone from Nigeria told me there's something to do with aliens over there. He said, motherfucker, we from outer space. I said, what? So I don't know what's going on with that, okay? Somebody's got to explain that shit to me. But something apparently is going on. Motherfuckers saying they're from outer space. And I don't know what that means, but I don't know. Okay. Base. Jacob!
Class is in session. Sit down.
Let me clear out my fucking nostrils. Man, I got two phones. I got two motherfucking phones. Hey, yo, what's up? Yo, what's up? Nah, I'm not doing nothing. Hold on, I'm gonna put you on hold. Hey, yo, what's up, Chat's mom? What's up? How you doing, baby girl? I'm gonna see you later, right? I'm gonna see you after stream when Chat goes to sleep. Yeah, we're not gonna wake him up. We ain't gonna wake him up. Yeah, they'd be fast asleep when we get down to business. You know what I mean? They're gonna be fast asleep when we get down to business. I mean, you know. Yeah, ain't nothing gonna happen. Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay. This is the most degen fucking stream ever, which is weird because of how serious the content is. Okay. Because of how serious the content is. Okay, we're good. We're good. All the nerds in my chat are like, I wanted to think about Dugan and Zizek. 40 minutes in. I'm gonna have to make this like a separate video. 40 minutes in, and we're doing this shit. All right, I had to catch up with you. Okay, I had to catch up. I had to catch up because it's been a day, and I have some energy to unleash, and I haven't spoken in a long time. I just want to speak. I want to speak. I want to talk. I'm like a parrot, right? I just want to speak. Give me a sec. Eli with the green. Thank you, man. Give me a sec. I'll reply your shit. Don't worry. Based. I got it on
He
time.
publicly denounced Zizek as a liberal.
We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. All right, now we need a palate cleanser. We need a palate cleanser, and I'm gonna cleanse the palate with my samurai sword. Okay, I'm gonna cleanse the palate right now. Okay, palate cleanser. Ready? Ready for this? Wait, I'm gonna talk about one more thing before I palate the cleanse. This reminded me of something, guys. I've started dieting. I've started to like cut, and I got discipline. My order yesterday of food had fucking fat, beautiful, golden French fries as part of the order. I threw them away. So just know that. Just know I have discipline. Okay? And I cut really easily, and I'm cutting like the samurai. But okay, now we're going to do a palate cleanser, okay? Palate cleanser, and then we're getting into the lecture, okay? So. Bah! Okay, let's get into it. Okay. All right. Where to begin? Where to begin? Well, have I ever told you of the story of Heraclitus the Dark? It's an intriguing story of Heraclitus the Dark. That's where we're going to begin. We're going to begin from the beginning. From the beginning of philosophy and the West as we know it, according to Heidegger, according to Martin Heidegger. We are beginning from the beginning. What is Heraclitus famous for saying? He's famous for saying that no man steps in the same river twice. Heraclitus is also known, or he's additionally known, as being the philosopher of change, of pure flux, of movement, right? But what he's less known for, and this is kind of a little bit criminally underrepresented, I guess, is for being the philosopher of the inception of what they call logos. Now, most of you, when you hear this word logos, I don't know if it's just me, but isn't that a word that kind of brings to mind Plato more than anyone? Not Heraclitus, but Plato, right? Plato seems like he's the philosopher of logos. But believe it or not, Plato, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but from what I know, Plato doesn't say a damn thing about logos. That comes from Heraclitus. Now, as far as what logos means, logos can be vaguely translated as the reason for things. The word logic comes from that root word logos. The reason for things, the almost the way of things, right? So then someone may ask, isn't the word logos a lot like the Eastern Tao, the way, right? Well, no, because the difference with logos and words like the Tao or the Tao is that logos already implies some kind of meaning in the form of rational thought. So for the logos, reason and thought already have some kind of privileged significance in describing being and moreover the relations of being. Logos as the reason, the rationale of the world, the nature of the world. Logos is a word you're going to hear often in classical philosophy in general. And it has a very masculine connotation, right? The logos, in addition to implying this kind of rationale, this kind of rational mediation of the world, principally through words and through language, is also going to be identified in another way. Logos, by default, and upon its inception, implies an exclusion. Logos is by nature exclusionary. And the way in which logos is exclusionary is that logos, in addition to identifying the reason, the rationale, the meaning behind things, also says that this reason, this rationale, is its form, is its identity, beyond which there is nothing and nothingness. So, logos, upon its inception by Heraclitus, already excludes nothingness. Now, what is the problem with this? Heraclitus, as you may recall, is known for being the philosopher of flux and change. And, no man steps in the same river twice, right? Everything's always in motion and in flux. So how could it be that Heraclitus, and not someone like Plato, is the philosopher at which point the concept or the notion of logos arises and emerges? How could that be? Well, the funny thing is that what Heraclitus meant by logos, actually, and as a matter of fact, had more to do with some kind of consistency of this movement. For Heraclitus, and at the outset, logos basically meant the consistency of inconsistency and the identity of difference. By consequence, Heraclitus teaches us that the world is inherently somehow inconsistent. Every time we try to ground the world or freeze the world into something, some kind of form, let's say, phenomenal form, let's just put it in that way, the world will necessarily be inconsistent with that because it's always changing and it's always in motion. No man steps in the same river twice. So for Heraclitus, this world of eternal motion is also a world that is inevitably going to be inconsistent somehow. So it is the consistency of this inconsistency. It is the permanence of what is impermanent that allows Heraclitus to derive this concept of logos. Logos, therefore, never entailed from the very beginning any kind of substantive being. Logos, from the very beginning, this is the beginning of it all, already entailed some kind of consistency of inconsistency alone. The content of logos can only be defined by something which is not what it is. Heraclitus is also known for arriving at the insight that all is one. All is one. But why does Heraclitus come to this insight that all is one? Because for Heraclitus, he is dealing with a world that has already been lacerated into distinctions and differences. So it is the all of difference, right? All of these different things that is in the end one. Now, what is that one for Heraclitus? It is the one of difference itself. So here begins, according to Heidegger, the beginning of the end of the West. Here begins for Heidegger the way in which we somehow made a mistake in the course of history. And this was the first moment in which the West was set on the path that culminates in a world of technology and of complete technologization of all things and the subordination of all beings to some form of instrumental reason, some instrumental technological reason. Everything is just a resource to be used and utilized for the pursuit of some other ends. And for Heidegger, this is the nihilism of modernity and of the American era and where we are now. Okay. So, how do you go from there to there? How do you go from Plato to NATO? Well, in this collapsing of all being to logos, remember what logos is. Logos is just the identity of difference, the consistency of inconsistency. In this collapse, somehow the original being itself, some original point out of which logos was derived, was forgotten. Now, let me put this in a way that you may understand, right? When we're talking about the world of the world under the tyranny of the techne, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of technology, you're looking around and look outside. I want everyone to turn their, look left and right and turn around 3 times and just look at all this shit around you and look out your window and just, think about the fact that every single thing you see is somehow a thing already subordinate to some kind of technological paradigm. All of these things are things that serve a purpose, or they're things to be used to fulfill some kind of ends in a utilitarian way. Everything you see around you, you've straitjacketed into a concept of some kind whose meaning ultimately boils down to some kind of use. Now, even when we think in naturalistic terms, this is also true. For example, what is a tree, you may ask? Well, a tree is a thing that I don't know. It has a trunk and it has branches and it has leaves. Okay, what is a tree? And when you start to describe the tree, you're going to start describing it in terms of functions. You're going to say, well, this is what the branch does. This is what the trunk does. The reason the leaves on this tree exist is to do this. And when you look at it in biological terms, why do fish have fins? Well, fish have fins in order to help the fish swim in the water. So all of these ways in which you describe particular beings are basically ways in which you are subordinating beings to some kind of technological paradigm. This is the techne, right? What Heidegger imposes upon us is the following question: how to think being as such. Because for Heidegger, this same paradigm of the instrumentalization of particular beings subordinated to technology, this particular paradigm has led to the point of a crisis for the West, for the Western civilization. The crisis being the basic nihilism I'm sure all of you are familiar with, right? We have turned everything into a function. We have turned everything into a utility. We have made everything artificial and commodified. All that is holy has been profaned. All that is solid has melted into air. Yada, yada, yada. Everything's becoming jellyfish. Even gender, even something so intimate to us as gender becomes jellyfish, right? So this is the crisis for Heidegger. And Heidegger asks the question of how we can think being in general. All beginning with Heraclitus. All beginning with Heraclitus. So keep that in mind, and I'm going to go spit some shit out of my throat, and I'll be right back, okay? Keep that in mind. Now, I have described to you Heraclitus in a pretty interesting way, to say the least. I'm sure it's a controversial way, to say the least. How Heraclitus, with the idea that logos is actually the identity of difference and the consistency of inconsistency and the permanence of impermanence, and yada, 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 right? Basically, logos exists with regard to a pure contradiction, but a pure contradiction that is with regard to the form of reality. So for Heraclitus, logos is derived from a basic contradiction within reality. Now, that's nothing new. Every civilization privileges opposites and contradictions as the point of the absolute. Okay? But the difference with Heraclitus is that Heraclitus derives the absolute, logos. He derives that from a contradiction purely with respect to form. Not, for example, contradictions between particular beings. Not, for example, some contradiction inherent into some kind of positive being, but just the mere fact that things are not. For Heraclitus, it is the mere fact that things are not, that there is not here, that he derives an identity, that he derives his concept.
Revolution.
Good morning, Revolution, Tristan. Good morning, Revolution. Sip some coffee and get cozy, because this is not going to be easy to follow. And you're going to have to be patient. Each and every word. You're going to probably have to watch this multiple times to understand this, right? And we're still just on our introduction, by the way. So that's what's unique about this Greek moment. Now, I'm going to ramble on a little bit and give you something that's not going to pop up in the lecture later, but it's just something I want you to keep for food for thought. What else is happening in Greece, in particular, that's unique? The time of Heraclitus. Well, I'll cut to the chase. What's happening is the beginning of history as we know it. Contrary to what you might think, history doesn't begin with the Neolithic Revolution. Private property doesn't even begin with the Neolithic Revolution. Property, actually, if you read Engels' The Origin of Private Property, the Family and the State, these things begin in ancient Greece. History proper begins in ancient Greece. The history relevant to Hegel, at least. Because corresponding to what's going on in philosophy that I just told you, also the same thing's happening politically. States are emerging that are latent with the quality of form and formality. You have things like, a form of the state that is somehow accountable to something beyond the state itself. It's unthinkable for something like the Persian Empire or any of these other empires in the world. So this is the beginning of private property. This is the beginning of the point at which man also, let me put it this way, what Heraclitus is doing for philosophy in deriving the logos man in ancient Greece is also doing with regard to relationships of production. Logos should be identified with private property, with a specific way in which that is mine is made into a definite and discrete identity. Now, don't get me wrong, in Asiatic civilizations, people own shit, but the way in which they own shit does not have an identity. It doesn't have an institution of any kind, right? So this is what's going on in ancient Greece at the exact same time. If you want more on that, you should read what Hegel said. Now, that was a brief detour. It's just a brief observation, guys. It's pretty funny, but like, a few days ago on Twitter, or today, they posted something about Hakim, and they were like, Hakim's content is so much smarter than Haz's and shit. Show me a single one of these ML YouTubers who like Hakim and Luna Oy in them. Show me where you're going to get this shit. Show me any of them. You're not going to get shit. I'm literally throwing pearls at you. I'm throwing pearls at you. Gems. And if you don't get this, what I'm saying, you are mentally retarded. And it's okay if you're mentally retarded. You need to retard yourself into a rewind and keep rewinding until you fucking get it, you fucking dumbass. But it's just funny how it's like what? If I was wearing glasses and I was wearing if I was wearing glasses and a sweater vest and I was some soy cuck and I was like, so basically what, and I sounded like that, everybody would be like, oh my god, that's so interesting. I never thought of that before. I'm throwing pearls at y'all, so listen closely, okay? Listen closely. This is the most important thing for thought. This is the foundation of Western civilization, logos. It's the foundation of everything. It's the beginning of everything. Everything, state, philosophy, politics, private property, the family, you name it. This is the inception, this is the beginning point that culminates in today's capitalism that I'm giving to you, okay? Hakim's gonna fucking talk about cars. I'm talking to you about the literal inception of private property, the inception of statehood, the inception of Western civilization as we know it, and the dialectic, the riddle of history in general, the riddle of modernity, all of that shit. That's what I'm giving you, okay? So you better buckle up and listen closely, motherfucker, because if you're the type of person, I just want to see Hakim talk about PragerU. You're a fucking retard, okay? I'm sorry, I don't know what else to fucking tell you. You're a dumbass. You're literally a stupid fucking person. You're a midwit. You're a fucking midwit. You're not an intellectual. You're not someone who thinks about anything. You're a dumb fuck, okay? Just to be clear. Just to be clear. Just to be clear, okay? And where is my fucking stress ball? Here it is. Here's my stress ball. Okay? Anyway. So, we've gotten to that point. What I just told you, more or less, what I just told you, should sound familiar to you if you've kept up with contemporary developments of so-called Western philosophy, if you can call it that. I don't really care if you don't want to call it philosophy, you want to call it something else, that's fine. The way I described Heraclitus, though, almost ad verbatim, sounds a lot like, if you're familiar with the guy, Deleuze. The French guy, Deleuze. It also sounds like something from another guy that we're going to talk about today, who's in the fucking thumbnail, actually. Slavoj Zizek. Deleuze is precisely the one who speaks about pure difference as such. So for Deleuze, all hitherto philosophy as subordinated difference to identity in some kind of way. For example, Hegel, when he speaks of the negation, or he speaks of difference, in the third element of Hegel's dialectic, which is the negation of the negation or the reconciliation, depending on how you want to look at it, difference is re-subordinated into some kind of identity. For Deleuze, the challenge is to think about pure difference as such. Pure difference as such. So you can anticipate the critiques of Deleuze that will come later from both Alain Badiou and Slavoj Žižek, which basically amounts to this idea that yes, Deleuze, pure difference, yes, but identity is nothing more than the identity of difference anyway. The one is only defined by its constitutive inconsistency and its constitutive gap. So here, from the beginning of the Western philosophy to what I would consider to be the end of the philosophy, you begin with Heraclitus, you end with pretty much the exact same thing. Strictly in terms of the identity of difference. And that is the logos, the supreme horizon and final threshold of Western thinking. The logos implies an exclusion, or what phenomenologists like Husserl or Heidegger will call bracketing. When you bracket something, basically means you're going to take it, you're going to put it in brackets, you're going to put it all the way over there, and then you're going to, it's just going to bracket it, you're not going to deal with it, and then you're going to proceed working on from something else. That's what bracketing means. So, initially, in the beginning of Western philosophy, as we know it, everything outside of logos is bracketed. And worse than bracketed, this bracketing comes to be that everything which is outside of the logos is nothing. Everything which is outside of the identity of difference is nothing. Why? Chat, why? Why, if you've been paying attention? If you haven't been paying attention, we can deal with that too. But I want one person to tell me, why would it be that logos is inherently exclusionary if logos means the identity of difference? Why would it be exclusionary? What would logos say about something that's not logos? How does logos treat what is outside of logos? Tell me. Tell me. Anti-Stirner, you're getting there. But isn't nothingness already an exclusion? So why? So Anti-Stirner is the smart guy in the classroom right now, right? And he helped you, chat. I'm putting this away. He helped you. Anti-Stirner helped you. It principally excludes the nothingness. Everything outside of the logos is nothing. Now I'm going to ask you the question, why is everything outside of the logos nothing? Why is everything... Yes! Vsauce, boy, you're getting VIP in the future YouTube chat that has VIP functions, because YouTube's a piece of shit. There's no VIP. Vsauce, boy, got it. Because from the perspective of logos, everything outside of the logos is condemned to inconsistency, motion, impermanence, and contradiction. Do you remember what Heraclitus said? No man steps in the same river twice. So from the perspective of the logos, because of that fact, because the world is always in motion, because everything is always changing, because nothing is ultimately consistent, there can be nothing that is not subsumed under this absolute and fundamental identity of difference. This permanence of impermanence and this consistency of inconsistency. Do you get it now? For Heraclitus, everything in the world is in motion. Everything somehow changes. So, how does Heraclitus articulate that fact, he finally comes to the conclusion that all of these differences, all is one. That oneness being identified by Heraclitus being the oneness of the difference itself. The oneness of the fact everything is different. That is the logos. The logos is the identity of difference. Everything outside of logos is nothing, only for the reason that anything which you identify as something is inherently contradictory and inconsistent. So what happens is that it's bracketed into nothingness, pure nothingness. If something is not logos, it is nothing. Plato, after Heraclitus, will just presuppose this. He will just presuppose this. Plato's notion of the one then proceeds from the question of what are the relations, or moreover, better put, what is the order of this logos in relation to the world? What is the order of logos? And here derives Plato's theory of forms. Now, with the pre-Socratics, you also see similar patterns. It was, I believe, what fucking school was it? Of Zeno and friends. Zeno the Phoenician, shout out to Phoenicians and friends, who also came to the opposite conclusion that Heraclitus came to, based on the same type of reasoning. The school of Thales. Yes, the Stoics, yes. I'm pretty sure it's the Stoics, the Greek Stoics. So Zeno comes to the conclusion that actually the world is just still, and it's not in motion. Nothing's in motion. Nothing moves. For the world to move implies a void, right? They contrast themselves with the Democritus. However the fuck you pronounce that guy. By saying there cannot be any void. The Democritus people who founded the atom obviously do believe in voids because they think it's empty space between atoms, right? But anyway, the Stoics believe the world is ultimately still. There is no motion. Now, you know the word, it's the Eleatic school. Are you sure? Okay. Well, Zeno's paradox basically is following the same reasoning. Zeno says, if Haas throws this knife at chat, if I throw this knife at chat, and the knife is going woo, woo, woo in space, right? And you try to measure each of the points that the knife has crossed into space, you will discover that they are infinitely differential, right? You can draw out an infinite number of points when I throw this knife at you. Why? Because you can always just make it infinitesimally smaller. It's also the story of the tortoise and the hare, which is the same thing, if you're familiar with that story. So what basically Zeno is dealing with is he's dealing with this basic contradiction between reality and the way we measure reality, right? For Zeno, there's no such thing as movement because in the distance between here and here, there are an infinite number of points, infinite possible number of points. Zeno basically uses this to draw the conclusion that there is no movement at all. But he, just like Heraclitus, is basically doing the same thing. He's saying, if we can only if the way we measure this distance can be infinitely differentiated, that means it tells us something about the distance, the space itself. So we have this subordination of the real, let's call it, the space in itself, to the form of its measurement. So the same thing is going on in the case of Zeno and the Stoics. Same exact thing is going on. Okay? So, what then happens, basically, throughout the history of the Western philosophy? Up to Slavoj Žižek himself, basically. There are basically two schools of Western philosophy that you're going to discover in history, right? I'll identify two. The two schools are basically those who seek to derive, or let's just say privilege, not the beginning of thought, not the beginning of logos, not the beginning of forms, whatever you want, but the relations of being as established under the tyranny of the logos. It's this antecedence of relationships, as someone put it, I read a long time ago, which they put it really well. People like Zizek, Deleuze, and then these crazy guys in the postmodernists, as they call them, right? As they're called by the right, I mean, right? They distinguish themselves principally in the fact that they believe the relationships of logos are antecedent before the beginning of logos itself. In other words, they are completely meaningless relationships. First you have the relationship, then you have the question of thinking the beginning, the origin. So one is concerned with relationships and the destruction of meaning. The other one is concerned with meaning as such, in all of its brevity and all of its weight. Okay. Now, it's also wrong to say that they are concerned with the destruction of meaning, because by the precedent established by Heraclitus, and I know I'm skipping a lot of history, right? But by the precedent of Heraclitus, more or less the implicit thread throughout all of Western thought is basically that meaning consists only in the destruction of the established forms of meaning. Once we destroy a given established form of meaning, we have actually arrived at real meaning. And this is the essence of the development of the West as we know it. For example, even think beyond philosophy. Isn't it so that it's only in the destruction of the gender do we discover gender? It's only in the destruction of the race we discover race. It's only in the destruction of family we discover the family. It's only in the destruction of private property do we discover private property. That is the basic tendency of the West, even beyond philosophy in general, right? It's only in the destruction of our sociality by capitalism do we discover sociality in the form of socialism, for instance, right? So that is the basic thread that runs across the entire history of the West. A basic thread. Now, I am talking now about the West. What about the East? What about the East? Before we can talk about the East, we have to talk about the real West. there's not just one West. The same thing the West subjects to being, which is the laceration of difference as the supreme form of identity, paradoxically can also be not just historically turned to define what the West is in the form of constant change and revolution, but also geospatially and geographically to define a difference that is imminent with regard to the identity of the West itself. Now, Alexander Dugin, he describes that inner difference, that inner contradiction that defines the West geographically, geospatially, let's say, in the form of Russia. So for Dugin, logos is the Western logos, yes, but strangely and paradoxically, when we include Russia into the fold of the West, we arrive at some, what Dugan calls, paradoxical elliptical structure. Now, if you don't know what an ellipse is, a circle goes like this, right? An ellipse is like a stretched out circle. Now, this hermeneutic device of the elliptical structure should be intuitively clear to you, because the shape of Europe and Russia is like an ellipse, right? It's like an ellipse. Are you picturing it in your head right now, this ellipse? Picturing it in your head? It's an ellipse. Okay, so now that you pictured the ellipse in your head, on the left-hand side of the ellipse, you have the Western logos, firmly centered in Western Europe. Because first it was Greece, but now it's Western Europe, let's say, right? Germany or something, right? Or it's Britain, where it's the center of Europe, right? The center of Europe is to the left of Russia. So within the ellipse, think of the ellipse as the woman's torso. It's the left titty on the torso, okay? The Western logos is a tit. It's a nipple on the left-hand side, okay? Think of it that way. I'm doing this to traumatize you into remembering this shit, okay? So on the right-hand side of this ellipse is Russia. And Dugin posits a hypothetical but never defined unique Russian logos. For Dugin, on the right-hand side, instead of a clear circle, a clear nipple, there's almost this phantom nipple. It's kind of has a rough outline purely as a hypothetical object of a Russian logos. Now, what would be a Russian logos? Dugin does not contrive the logos as some arbitrary thing. There's a Western one, Eastern one, Russian one. No, he doesn't do that yet, at least, right? Here, within this elliptical structure, this paradoxical structure, that as he defines it, here lies the structure of what Dugin calls the paradoxical structure of Archaeo-modernity. What is Archaeo-modernity? Now, again, I'm trying to work with you. Archaeo is a part of the word that's going to denote the past. Modernity is going to denote the future, right? Archaeo-modernity. Russia, in Russian history, is defined by the paradoxical structure of Archaeo-modernity. Now, within this paradoxical structure of Archaeo-modernity, as Dugin describes it, it's not simply that Russia derives its own Western logos. Russia's intellectual elites, let's say since Peter the Great, which is when this begins, right? Russia's philosophers, Russia's are artists. It's thinking class, right? The class that can be somehow thrusted upon to philosophy. Also political class as well. They basically master the Western logos. They import the Western logos. They're Westernizers, like Peter the Great. They're importing this Western logos. And somehow, the Western philosophers, the Western elites, let's call them, right? In their engagement, or in their attempt to engage with the logos, let's call it, right? The Western logos, Western philosophy, Western elites, always come somehow to the same tragical conclusion of fully exhausting it and being brought to the threshold of the insufficiency of fully exhausting the Western logos, because somehow in their engagement with the Western logos, they are presupposing some fundamentally Russian grounding. So, for example, a beautiful example of this is the Bolsheviks. Lenin. Lenin is the perfect example of this paradoxical, elliptical structure of archaeo-modernity. Lenin is dealing with this logocentric concept of the proletariat. Why is the proletariat such a logocentric concept? Because the proletariat is only defined by the class, ready? That is not a class. That's Marx's own word. The proletariat is a class which is not a class. It's the only class defined by negativity, by not having private property, by only having its labor to sell, right? However, when Lenin is importing the Western concept of the proletariat to Russia, Lenin is still presupposing the breadth and density of some kind of substantive Russian reality, to which he imposes this logos that defines its background. So the West, for example, has this logos, right? Beyond which lies nothingness. But for Lenin, whether he acknowledges this or not, he doesn't have to, he doesn't need to. For Lenin, beyond the threshold of the Western logos is not nothing. It's the it's the Russian peasant. Beyond the threshold of Western logos, concept of the proletariat, for Lenin, is the Russian peasant. So for the Westerner, there is nothing. For Lenin, there is the Russian peasant. It's not simply that the Russian civilization represents a separate logos in contradiction to the European logos. No, you can fully import Western logos, European logos to Russia. The problem is that this logos will eventually become assimilated and subordinated into some already positively existing substantive Russian reality. And Dugin calls it also, let me just make this even more simplistic for you. I can make it more simplistic, right? You can just think of communism. Communism is a logocentric Western philosophy or whatever. It's a Western ideology. You bring the Western communism to Russia, and you fully exhaust this communism. You fully exhaust it. You are the best communist a communist can be. And you still end up with what? Stalin, the revival of the Orthodox Church, revival of Russian civilization, Alexander Nevsky, patriotism, and Russianness. True Russian patriotism. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what Dugin means by the paradoxical structure of archaeo-modernity. When you import the logos of the West to Russia, it becomes assimilated into some kind of substantive reality that is beyond the identity of difference. It's some positive reality, some kind. So, Dugin tries to locate within this pattern some hypothetical Russian logos. He says, we have not discovered our own Russian logos, but in analyzing the paradoxical structure of Archaeo-modernity, the ellipse that is Archaeo-modernity, somehow on the right-hand side of this ellipse, this hypothetical structure has imposed its possibility, has imposed its semblance, right? Okay. Okay, so I hope you've got that so far, right? Dugan is wrong then. Why is Dugan wrong? Go ahead. Spit it out to me. Why is Dugan wrong? Say Dugan is wrong then. Why is he wrong? I think Dugan has given us a pretty accurate description of the situation, but you are free to try and, I suppose, challenge that. There was not much of a capitalist tradition before the October Revolution. Doesn't have to be capitalist. Logos just means the West. So Peter the Great clearly preceded the October Revolution. I don't think you're really following anything we're saying here. Logos does not just mean capitalism. Logos just means logos, the identity of pure difference, the negative universalism and abstractionism defining the history of Europe. You got to keep up. Don't type Dugan is wrong then when you didn't even listen to what was being said. Now you wear the dunce cap in the corner of the classroom. See what happens when you muster the arrogance to just make assumptions? Now you sit in the corner as the dunce of the whole classroom. And it's not my fault. It is not my fault.
But over 100,000 clergymen were executed in the USSR, and that's only in the years 1937 to 1941. It was not until Gorbachev that church...
Shut the fuck up. This is what, by the way, I find pathetic about these fake traditionalists, fake conservatives. Sir, do you think clergymen aren't executed before modernity under this religious traditional societies? Like, that dumbass Zolt was like, oh, the communists killed the queen of Mongolia. Motherfucker, you don't think Genghis Khan was beheading queens and shit? You think back, if anything, the most ultra modern thing is the fantasy of some wholesome pre-modern world where, you know, clergies aren't being burned and buried alive, like, as if fucking, you know, the legalist emperors in China aren't fucking burying the scholars alive and shit. That's what's happening. That's the pre-modern traditionalist world. true traditionalist world is violent fire of revolution. Okay? It's not some, no, Ivan the Terrible is fucking chopping people's heads off and shit. That's what's going on. Okay? Yeah, Spanish Inquisition. Look at the European wars of religion and shit. You're gonna fucking tell me communism brings some unique evil? No. This is actually the same evil of the past. But I don't even know if that figure is correct. It was not until Gorbachev the church was saved. That's not true at all. It's not true at all. The church was revived in the USSR before World War II. You know, there's a lie that says Stalin only did it because of World War II. No, before World War II, it was being revived. So that's a complete lie that they try to say. And no, under Gorbachev they were saved. No, that's not true. Thank you, Morlock.
Is it that in the West the negation of the negation can't form, that it is suspended, and in the East it is realized through the peasantry realizing it can be this negation?
Thank you, Morlock. It is something like that. It does have a lot to do with this, let's call it logos, this relation, this structure that is the negation of the negation. But we're going to get to that when we talk about Zizek, right? Because we're still talking about Dugin right now. I just want to, first I have to introduce you to these two thinkers and what they're all about. And then I'm going to talk about what it would mean to combine them. What does it mean to read them through one and another? Yeah, Khrushchev did shut them down because it was part of his anti-Stalinist purges. The churches were associated with Stalinism under Khrushchev. So that's also something to keep in mind. Okay, continuing on to this lecture. So I have talked to you about the paradoxical structure of Russian Archaeo-modernity. Now, Dugin derives the conclusion of the need to search for some unique Russian logos and to escape the paradoxical structure of Archaeo-modernity that has defined Russia's place and relationship not only to the West, but to the world. But for Dugin, this Russian logos, it remains hypothetical and remains principally defined by the various shortcomings and failures of the reconciliation of this contradiction. The specific way it fails to be reconciled between the Western logos and the Russian, let's call it, substantive reality. Now, let's put Dugin on a pause for a moment. Let's put Dugin on a pause for a moment. And let's skip a lot of history that culminates into Slavoj Zizek. Because, oh boy, it pains me to say this given his horrible political views. But I'm going to go out and say, I welcome anyone to challenge this. Slavoj Zizek is the greatest thinker. He is the greatest Western thinker living today. Slavoj Zizek is the greatest Western thinker living today. There is no Western thinker that is alive that comes close to Slavoj Zizek in terms of rigorously developing a true, let's call it, philosophy and a Western philosophy. And moreover, it is precisely this as a philosophy of the Western logos. It is only Slavoj Zizek who exhausts the limit of the Western logos. And no one appreciates that fact. Thank you, class is fundamental.
Consistent, persistent, and synthetic left resistant.
Loving that green. Loving that green.
based.
He's still
Loving
a
that
man,
green,
broken
Eli.
heart.
Zizek, don't talk about his politics because you're talking about nothing when you talk about his politics. His politics don't matter. All of his political mistakes come from his philosophy. Understand his philosophy first. Zizek alone has fully exhausted the Western logos. Not because he's an original thinker per se, but he has kept memory alive of this Western logos, which in philosophical form was actually exhausted by Hegel. By Friedrich Hegel. Hegel is the last philosopher. But Zizek is the only person who remains a consistent and faithful Hegelian in the age of, let's call it, post-modernity. And what is post-modernity? Post-modernity is basically defined by some kind of difference that is between our consciousness. Oh shit, a violet. We got a pink, we got a red in this bitch. Thank you, Anti.
Politics is when philosophy becomes violent.
Thank you, Anti-Sterner. Got a pink, red in this bitch. We got a reddish pink in this bitch. We going hard in this bitch. Alright. Alright. By the way, anyone who tells you that they think they're smarter than Zizek is stupid. That's like a retard who doesn't read. Those are people who like to talk about Zizek without reading him in all of his brevity and depth. Because that's a really hard thing to do. You guys know what's really hard to understand Zizek? It's very difficult, okay? Anyone who's telling you that they like, oh, Zizek is just like wrong. I mean, like, I would love to see you say this shit about Zizek to him, and he would respond to you embarrassing you, okay? Nietzsche is not a particularly impressive thinker in any capacity. So I don't know why you're telling me to read Nietzsche, because he's not that impressive. You're just like one of those nitpickers, like, Zizek's wrong. Zizek's wrong about Nietzsche because it's always this dumb shit. Go ahead and type in my chat, why is Zizek wrong about Nietzsche? Type in my chat why he's wrong about Nietzsche. And just explain it to the best of your ability. Describe it to the best of your ability. And I'll wait for you while I continue on my lecture. Okay? So, Zizek is wrong about the eternal return. You don't even know what that is. Carl Mackel, why don't you get in my VC and quiz me if I know what the eternal return is? You want to do that? Would you like to do that, Carl? Would you like to get in my VC right now and quiz me on whether I know what the eternal return is? You stupid bitch. Oh, bitch. You don't even... See, this is like one of these ugly fucking stiff nerds who pretend they know things who don't know shit. Okay? They just like the veneer of superiority that's like, oh, no, you don't know. No, you don't know shit, you dumb bitch. You've never actually submitted yourself to the painstaking work of actually, carry. Yeah, whatever, carry. You've never committed yourself to the fucking work of trying to understand anything. You just dismiss shit because you get the first impression that someone else is wrong. See, chat, let me teach you the law of arrogance, right? If you ever dismiss someone, you better double check, you better triple check, you better quadruple check before you start making statements, okay? If you want to be brought to the point of making a statement, double check it, triple check it, quadruple check it, really think about it. Don't just say shit based on your first impression, okay? Anyway, let me talk about Zizek. Now, before I talk about Zizek, I want to give you a TLDR on what Dugin says about Mr. Zizek. What Dugin says about Zizek is basically, Nietzsche teaches of becoming self-actualized. Motherfucker, what is that? Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Dude, you're literally a Reddit fucking Quora philosopher. We literally got a Reddit Quora philosopher in the building. I have learned to self... This is you know what this type of dude is? This is a dude who goes on Instagram and he's like shirtless on a mountain and he's got his legs crossed and there's like the sun is rising. He's like, I have learned to transcend my worries. And I have like he's one of those fucking Redditors. And then the next fucking post is about like Rick and Morty and fucking, you know, all this fucking cringy ass shit. That's the type of dude this is. These are the people who love Nietzsche. They're like these fucking Jordan Peterson fucking fanboys who think they know shit. And he made Nietzsche into his fucking teddy bear. And he's upset that Zizek has said bad things about Nietzsche. Because like Nietzsche, he's attached this psychological significance to Nietzsche with regard to his life. Speak of the devil, it's precisely psychologism and this significance of pathology, the pathos, that really makes Zizek the last thinker of the West, actually. So, to get to the chase, I want to talk about what Zizek's known for in popular consciousness. Zizek's known for being the guy who kind of sniffs and goes, it's pure ideology, right? Even though the concept of ideology comes from Althusser, that Zizek is using, I mean, right? That comes from not Zizek, but Althusser, the French guy Althusser. But why is Zizek known for being the guy who talks about ideology? Because we Westerners are afflicted with a disease of some kind. We are afflicted with some kind of pathos in the modern age, maybe in general. We are afflicted with a pathos of attempting to integrate the civilization or society which has its foundation nothingness or logos. How do we find meaning in the world? And how does this relate to our psychosexual realities of how we derive enjoyment of things? How do we derive sexuality, you know, is a big one. Why do you guys think, by the way, the LGBT shit is like really a big deal right now? You can go the conspiracy theory route, which has truth in it, but then you can also think about it philosophically and realize it's because sexuality is being subjected to the laceration of logos, the Heraclitian lacerations of the logos, right? It's basically the same thing. So we have this pathos, which is being described by Freud for the modern subject, to discover and to aspire, not philosophically through our thoughts and through our mind, but through our desires and through our fantasies and through our pathological needs, right? Through our drives, to realize some kind of logos in the form of fantasy. A wholesome, let's call it, fantasy in which we realize our desire and in which we realize and satisfy our unconscious wishes and aspirations. The things we want, the things we desire. What Zizek does, basically, is establish how how pretty much all of our visions, whether we're revolutionary, Maoists, and anarchists, or whatever the fuck you want, right? All of these fantasies we have of reality are kind of coping mechanisms which disguise, as a matter of fact, some fundamental inconsistency, some contradiction. We LARP as Marxist-Leninists, and we're politically correct on Twitter, and we're bisexual and whatever. We do this because we are trying to disguise or otherwise cope with some constitutive difference, some constitutive traumatic real of the logos. The fact that the logos is just the identity of the difference. Now, I'm being very generous in my use of the word logos because it's an extra philosophical use. It has to do with the fact, for example, that, someone who's a furry, or someone who's has 1,000 different genders, or someone who's LARPing like Jason Unruhe as a red guard, they're doing all of these things because they are caught within a type of constitutive fantasy that allows them to avoid the traumatic fact that there is a fundamental contradiction that is at the basis of everything they consider meaningful and real in the world. A fundamental contradiction. And that is our pathos as Western subjects. We aspire to realize some kind of consistent fantasy in which our desires will be realized. By the way, why do you guys think I hate, and spit on the vaporwave aesthetic? Because vaporwave is precisely this kind of, this presentation of internet ideologies within this kind of wholesome vacuum within which our true dreams are realized. If you think CPUSA 2036 should be put in a vaporwave background, you've got the whole fucking thing wrong. You are in pure ideology. Thank you, Rare Wolf. Thank you, Rare Wolf. Thank you, Rare Wolf, for that sticker. That funny sticker. Now, I'm just gonna cut to the chase. I don't really think it would be good to well, okay. Let's begin from Heidegger again, because I talked about what Heidegger said, this orientation toward being, the beginning of being, right? Well, after Heidegger, this post-Heideggerian thinkers, somehow it's possible for there to be post-Heideggerian thinkers, but almost all of them are grounding their unique modes of thought in some kind of constitutive rejection of Heidegger, a rejection which somehow preserves his phenomenological turn. So thinkers like Deleuze, Lacan as well, Zizek, Alain Badiou, and others, these are thinkers that have to reject and repress Heidegger's originative insight of the origin of being, right? Or the origin of the form of being in the logos or in the Platonic idea, depending on how you want to look at it. And they have to foreclose that and somehow return yet again to the primacy and antecedence of relationships over identities. How does being actually relate to itself? Now, the reason I will call all of these people Heideggerians, Heideggerian thinkers, is because they recognize the question Heidegger puts as the question of being, and they leave that question open. They merely say, Heidegger, you are right about, let's say, this ontological turn, that we are faced with the question of being. You are correct about this, Heidegger. But the way in which you establish and present the relationship, for example, between the Dasein and being is wrong. The way you structure, the way you relate this is wrong. So they preserve Heidegger's ontological turn, but they critique Heidegger on the basis that the way in which he describes the relations within which his ontology is grounded is wrong. And that becomes the basis of post-Heideggerian criticisms of Heidegger. But what Heidegger did, which is basically open the question of being as such, that was preserved by all these post-Heideggerian philosophers. Up to Lacan, by the way, who does try to re-derive, even redeem Descartes in the midst of Heidegger's criticisms. Lacan was a guy who would go drive to Heidegger's home, and he would always like show Heidegger his little doodles of his mathemes and his kinds of like Baromean knots. Look, Heidegger, look at this, look at this. And Lacan would do this with Heidegger personally, in person, because Lacan was basically trying to convince Heidegger that he has a lead on being able to understand the question and problem Heidegger was aiming at opening up better than Heidegger himself. Okay? Now, I'm not going to summarize the history of Western thinking past Heidegger. It suffices enough for me that you know, in the first place, Heidegger's significance. Okay? But I do want to begin with Lacan a little bit and Deleuze. Because what both Lacan and Deleuze are going to have in common here is, in addition to furthering this primacy of relations over origins in terms of trying to understand let's just say, or to develop, I should say, let's just call it develop a school of thought, okay, to be less less risky is the word I'm looking for. Let's just call it to develop their schools of thought, their forms of thought. They are not concerned with the origins of thinking. They're not concerned with the origins of the logos. They foreclose and bracket these origins in order to develop the relationships instead. By the way, this kind of is what distinguishes thinkers like Jordan Peterson from Slavoj Žižek, isn't it? Peterson is really reckless, and he's really he's extremely amateur when it comes to his ability to understand like the particular relationships underlying the different conceptual devices he freely and overgenerously makes use of. Someone like Zizek hyper-focuses on these different relations, conceptual relationships, right? That's all Zizek cares about. Zizek doesn't care about meaning, he cares about the relationships and the way in which they undermine conventional and established forms of meaning, right? That's because, I'll basically put it this way. Western philosophy in terms of its development and its focus on relations over origins, is basically the leg day. It's basically the leg day. It's basically the leg day of philosophy. It's kind of the feminine insistence on, you know, don't skip your leg day. Or it's kind of like this thing of, who's that Japanese woman who's like, you will solve all your problems in life if you just, hold on, give me a second. If you just get rid of things you don't want. It's this focus on the micro particularity of the details of the household cleaning that kind of is what we're talking about here, right? For example, it's very masculine just to have an extremely simple, broad approach to things. But then what does woman say? Woman says, don't forget the details. Don't forget the small details. The small details matter. Also, not just the woman, but the effeminate male, like the soy male. That's why, soy males, pro tip, they love talking about leg day. Soy males love talking about leg day because they like assuming that feminine wisdom of don't forget the details, don't forget the particularity, right? But, of course, when a man... when a Western man tries to philosophically be a man and only focus on the big things and the big questions like Jordan Peterson, they end up looking like a fucking dumbass. Jordan Peterson looks like a dumbass because he's still operating within the framework of the Western logos, and he's taking for granted the fact that he is simply giving an inadequate breadth of description and detail to the very thing that he takes as his object, which, by the way, only has significance because of the way in which it self-differentiates and self-particularizes itself into all of these very complicated relationships of detail, right? A real man, philosopher man, is Dugan. And by the way, my thesis of today is also gendered in a way, right? My thesis of today is basically, if you are a fan of Slavoj Zizek, but not Dugin, you have extremely low testosterone levels. Extremely low. You are not a man. There's something in Dugin you have to appreciate and mold your thinking around in order to philosophically be a man. That's my view. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. You are basically Ben Burgess. How am I Ben Burgess? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, you're basically Ben Burgess or worse. Worse. And this is why we can never forgive Zizek, by the way. We cannot forgive Zizek. We can't forgive Zizek because of Chapoid Trap House and his fucking fans. Now, everybody... When I say Zizek's the greatest, thank you, Anity Sterner.
What if we are a fan of Dugan but not Zizek? I'm a trans woman BTW.
That's fine. To be a fan of Dugan only is fine. But sometimes, if you're a fan of Dugan, you can overreach into the details and get it wrong. So I recommend Zizek. Also, the significance of gender. I mean, a soy male is not a woman, okay? A soy male is just a weak man. A weak man is not a woman. So it's not like you become manly by appreciating truly masculine philosophers like Dugin. Women are allowed to appreciate masculine things. It doesn't destroy their femininity. Because of the paradoxical relation defining what man and woman is. Woman is non-all. Woman, to put it in Lacan's terms, like, woman is to man what Russia is to European logos. It subordinates somehow, right? It's the womb. It's the womb. Chapoid Trap House. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. We must never ever forgive Zizek for his disgusting following. We must never ever forgive him for that. His disgusting, evil, scum following. Anyway. To continue. I could make this like a 6-hour lecture. There's so much to talk about as far as Zizek's politics. But I'll confine us once again to this question of the understanding of relations instead of origins. One last thing. What about Cumtown? I used to not like Cumtown. I never listened to them in my life because I thought it was the same thing as Chapo. But then I started to do some investigating and I realized the Cumtown people are different than the Chapo people. The Cumtown people, I don't think they ever sold out. I don't think they ever sold out like the Chapo guys did. I think the Cumtown people are still the same Bernie bros as in 2016. They're not for Bernie anymore, but like they never sold out and became like these cucks. So I vaguely like Chapo. Not Chapo. I vaguely like Cumtown. I vaguely like Cumtown because they are against leftist. They're just not cringe. I don't know how else to fucking put it. They're not cringe, okay? They're not cringe. Now, they're not really my sense of humor because I'm an Afro-Asiatic Mediterranean male. But if you're white, then I recommend Cumtown, okay? I'm not saying that as an insult, by the way. I'm genuinely saying, like, I like them. Don't get me wrong, I like them, but, like, I have a different sense of humor, which is based on being loud and shit. And, you know, being exaggerating and shit, whatever. I've got that type of humor, but they're a good, I approve of them as the leaders of white America. White America's youth. I approve, okay? Anyway, Sam Hyde is, Sam Hyde, I don't know enough about him. Initially, I didn't like him. And the reason initially I didn't like him is because, I didn't understand it, right? And I still not a fan per se. It's not my type of humor, but I did see some of that. I'm not that familiar with these people. You gotta understand that. I did see some of that documentary with iDubbbz and Sam Hyde. Without knowing anything about Sam Hyde, I like that guy way better than fucking iDubbbz. Way better. Okay. That guy was way better. Yeah, you know what? 2070 paradigm shift. I did see that. I did see that. And that was fucking funny. That was funny. That was funny. Okay? That was funny. But this is not like my type of shit. Like, I'm an Afro-Asiatic Mediterranean male, right? My sense of humor is literally like... My sense of humor is like fucking... You know... Honestly, it's like... It's like, how can I describe my sense of humor? It's like my hair right now. It looks fucking stupid. No, it's look at this. What is this? What is this? Who made this? I need a haircut. I need a haircut. And my haircut appointment was canceled. By the way. No, my sense of humor is kind of like Can I tell you the truth? Can I tell you the truth? No, not deadpan. I've gotten to a point. I just laugh at my own jokes. I laugh at my own humor. Every time I make a tweet, I can't sleep because I'm laughing so hard. I laugh so hard at my own humor. My shit is so funny. I laugh so hard at what I do. Yeah, Zerka's my sense of humor too, to be fair. That's my sense of humor. It's that type of Mediterranean shit, you know? There's two people, yeah, pretty much Zerka and me is what I find funny. That's what I find funny. That's my sense of humor. No, Kantbot is funny too, to be fair. Kantbot is literally funny, but yeah, yeah, that's my sense of humor. And Slicker. Slicker's also funny. I like him. But like there's some people that look at Art's sense of humor and they're like, you're just loud. You don't, and it makes them uncomfortable and shit. And I'm like, you know what? I'm real, bitch. I'm real. I'm real. I don't give a fuck. Okay? That's my sense of humor. Okay? Anyway. Let's get back into our lecture. Okay? Thank you, Chris Morlock.
Jimmy the Ray is funny when he calls out idiocy.
You're right. Jimmy Dore's pretty funny too. Anyway, let's get back into our lecture, okay? Now, I kind of want to pause to eat, but I'm not gonna. But you know what? I am gonna because I can. Okay, so we're gonna pause so I can eat, and after I eat, I'm gonna be able to like do whatever, right? They better not have given me fries. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. So, oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. I mean, I can't eat this. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear, I'm trying to cut. And I'm trying to cut. Look what they did to me. Look what they gave me. I didn't ask for this. This is chicken, by the way. It's not a burger, so it's healthy. But oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear, while I'm trying to cut. Okay? Let me take a short break, just eat this sandwich, and then we'll get back on track. Okay? We'll get back on track. Just remember what I said before about relations and their significance, so I can get back on track. It's chicken. Get it? It's chicken. There's no mayo. There's no mayo in this, okay? No mayo. I love how 60 people left. They can't just wait like 2 minutes for me to fucking finish this. All y'all bitches that are leaving, I don't give a fuck, because Jackson's gonna raid me anyway.
Do you like Slavoj Zizek at all? Do you know?
No, not at all. No, I think.
Not at all. Oh, this is great. So why not? I want to.
But I think Slavoj Zizek has one secret. If you know Lacan, so there will be no more mystery in Zizek. Zizek, it is very correct, very, I would say, authentic, and very orthodox continuation and application of Lacan's theories. I have studied some years Lacan, and Zizek is a continuation of application of Lacan. Zizek understands Lacan very well, so that is for him. But I don't think Lacan is much richer than Zizek. And if we understand Lacan, we can be 100 times more interesting than Zizek. Only
Based.
Historical speculation suggests the majority of ethnic groups that are majority Shia have ethnic ties with the Persians. Your thoughts?
All right. I'm going to piss. Yeah, I'm going to piss. I'll be right back. I'm going to take a quick piss.
Jar Jar, sorry, Lacan is the key to all this.
Hey guys, I missed some stuff. Thank you, Light of the Twin Lamps.
Historical speculation suggests the majority of ethnic groups that are majority Shia have ethnic ties with the Persians. Your thoughts?
I think that's true. I have a relative who told me that. He's like, yeah, we Shia in Lebanon, we're like Persian ethnically or some shit like that. So, yeah, that's what I heard. Thank you, Anna Sterner. Appreciate you.
Jar Jar, sorry, Lacan is the key to all this.
So, we are going to continue. We're going to continue on where we left off. More or less, you're going to see people who are in the post-Heideggerian, school of continental thinking, whatever, who are by the mightiest thinkers the West has to offer. The analytical school are a bunch of retards and computers who are worthless, right? And the most they do is like, oh, I know how to make computers. thanks for being a technology guy, but you're not a philosopher. You're not actually an active thinker, right? But these people are going to arrive at the conclusion, or they're even going to presuppose it, that I gave you, which was the beginning of Western philosophy, that Heraclitus, that the logos is the identity of difference. So they are still dealing with the logos, even then, right? Even if they have like gotten rid of these various privileged representations of the logos, such as God and such as, authority or even truth and empirical fact or any of this kind of stuff, as in the case of like the people who just kind of say there is no real, it's just a play of appearances and discourses and words. That's fine. That is already inherent in what Heraclitus did from the very beginning. The whole point, if the logos is the identity of difference, then of course Western history and Western philosophy is going to be defined by this self-negating and self-undermining process by which every form of the logos is undermined by virtue of being real, by virtue of existing, right? Any form of the logos is going to be negated because, spoiler alert, the logos is itself defined by being not, right? By being a difference, by being some contradiction, by being some problem, by being some, as Zizek would like to put it, some kind of deadlock, right? So that's already inherent from the very beginning. Now, what I think the principal achievement of this enterprise and why it is of vital significance and importance for Marxism-Leninism is principally in its critical orientation and its critical thrust. And when I say critical, I just mean that in the negative sense. Now, chat, I want to ask you a question. What separates me from Jason Unruhe or fellow traveler? Shut the fuck up about Star Wars. Shut the fuck up about Star Wars. Or you're getting banned. None of you are getting this right. Which means none of you have been paying attention to anything I've said. None of you are paying attention. Okay, some guy kind of got it, is that I don't LARP. But can you be more specific? What thinkers may have given me the wisdom of why LARPing is vain, or why these ideologies, as they are being articulated and enjoyed and expressed and understood, may be faulty or inconsistent or wrong? What thinkers may have pointed me in that direction? Okay, I'll just fucking spoil it for you. It's people like Zizek, people like Lacan. I understand very well the contradiction between the overt ideological claim, which is that I want a revolution, and I want change, and I want this, and I want that, and what you really want on an unconscious level, right? Jason Unruhe, for example, he's a guy who says, I want a revolution, I want to overthrow the state, I want to bring about communism. Sure, that's what he says on the surface, but it's not difficult to discover, based on the contradictions thereof, that that's not what he really wants. What he really wants is to, for example, enjoy his position of failure in a specific kind of way, which elevates his sense of self above everyone else. So you see, it's this ability to criticize and scrutinize the difference between how the logos presents itself to us and what it actually is that I think defines maybe the principal achievement of the kind of French orientation, the French school, Lacan, Deleuze, Zizek, Badiou. It's basically a way of disentangling meaning from the relations thereof. Disentangling meaning from the relations thereof. What do I mean by that, right? Well, for example, just take the kind of concept of jouissance that both Deleuze and Lacan deploy. Jouissance is according to them how we have a surplus enjoyment over things, how we have this excess, this experiential and psychological excess of drive over and against the particular ways in which we give formal expression to our needs, to our wants, and to our speech. Lacan is a guy who's famous, for example, for saying things like speaking and fucking are the same thing. The same jouissance we derive from fucking is the same as speaking. Both are oriented around a level of surplus enjoyment we derive from engaging in their respective acts. When you speak, right, you're somehow enjoying. There's a surplus of enjoyment over and against your stated formal intention of just communicating. You're not just communicating, you're also somehow enjoying inherently, right? And it's just common sense, right? You ever know, like, the guy who just won't shut the fuck up and loves hearing the sound of their own voice? Why do people enjoy talking, right? People enjoy talking because it's somehow satisfactory in a way that's beyond the stated intention that would satisfy your motive. Oh, I want to talk because I want to communicate. No, clearly people talk not just because of the stated intention of wanting to communicate, but because for some reason they're deriving this weird surplus pleasure and surplus enjoyment just from speaking, right? So in the same exact way, you are basically disentangling the formal meaning of speaking with some kind of relationship, a relationship of enjoyment. So in that same sense, a lot of the things that Jason Unruhe and Fellow Traveler and other people do, they, for example, state their intention that they want to be revolutionaries, they want to be Marxist-Leninists. But in the background and in reality, they are clearly engaging in, let's say, forms of enjoyment or psychological patterns and symptoms and forms that are by themselves not inherently meaningful. Marxist-Leninist, the stated intention of Marxist-Leninist ideology doesn't justify Jason Unruhe's LARP. Jason Unruhe is LARPing not because of the stated intention of being a Marxist-Leninist, but because there's some kind of inherently meaningless structure of subjectivity that, for him, makes this necessary. So, do you now understand what I mean by this privileging of the relationships between things rather than beginnings and origins that, in my view, defines the principal achievement of the West in general, let's say, right? That's what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about. Likewise, with the ontologies of people like Deleuze or Badiou or Zizek, and whoever else you want, you're not dealing with an understanding of being that is with reference to some meaningful reality. You are bracketing meaning and reducing the relationships of being to relationships of some kind of abstraction with regard to itself. So, for example, Deleuze makes this point in a way I pointed out earlier of this idea of pure difference, right? There are differences between particular things, like the difference between this knife and this thing I'm holding in my hand, but then there's just pure difference as such. Likewise, there's ideas of the one. You would ask, what the one of what, right? The Platonic one. Well, the Platonic one is not the one of anything. It's an ontic one. It's the one as such. The one of oneness as such. The one of being, right? Where being is oneness. It's oneness as such. Defining being and making reference to being in the specific terms of deadlocks, differences, contradictions, shortcomings, and impossibilities as the privileged medium by which one describes reality, and exhausting this to its furthest limit is what defines the kind of Western philosophical logos. And somehow, all of reality is reduced to this abstraction. From Hegel to Zizek himself. When Zizek makes the argument that reality is less than nothing, that reality is defined by some internal deadlock and some constitutive gap of the real with regard to itself, and this is what gives rise to positive being, he is, on the one hand, making it clear that he is pointing out the impossibility of some kind of exhaustative, privileged form, right? He is doing that. But he is also making the assumption that reality can be reduced to this just because it cannot satisfy the requirement of being, let's say, formally consistent. The question you have to ask people like Zizek is, why do you make the assumption, for example, that the non-Westerner has claimed reality is fully consistent? The pretense to the full consistency of reality, as a matter of fact, is itself the ultimate pretense of the European logos. It creates the thing it is attempting to undermine and negate. Heraclitus says the only identity is the identity of difference. Well, some Persian Zoroastrian priest will look at Heraclitus and he'll say, okay, that's a given. It's a given that the absolute is, for example, the identity of difference. But what particular form does that assume? Heraclitus cannot answer that question because for Heraclitus, the particular form is nothingness. The Persian priest will say it's our sublime empire, for example. So we are dealing with this problem of being able to orient the Western mind beyond the threshold of the logos. Now, why do I think Zizek has a privileged significance here? Because for me, Zizek has brought this project to its furthest possible threshold, to its furthest possible conclusion. His specific ontology, defined by the self-relating negativity of being, a self-relating negativity that merely justifies the possibility of giving reflexive philosophical expression to it, to me, arrives at the threshold and limit of the logos. to me, Zizek resolves the problem in his own way. He resolves the problem by inscribing the gap the gap inherent to being as a quality of the thing itself. Sorry, the gap between, for example, thinking and being as a quality of being itself. But Zizek is only capable of describing this in negative terms. Zizek can only describe this in negative terms because for him, sorry, I keep saying for Zizek, he can only describe this in negative terms because his enterprise merely concerns itself with relations deriving thereof from this original logos, not from a question of its actual beginning. What does that mean, by the way? What does that mean? To give you an example, when Zizek talks, for example, about when he speaks about this kind of incontinence of the void, of how the void, of how the nothingness is pregnant with something. That something, by the way, just being the way in which it is not itself. He describes this strictly in terms of the negation of identity and of form. He does not make the leap to the recognition that somehow positive form in actual reality itself does not make pretense to the enterprise of full consistency or full being devoid of contradictions. Contradictions are something that relate to our mind. The contradictions inherent to being as such are not contradictions, but features of the positive being itself. It's the problem only enters when we make assumptions about what that positive being is in our mind, in our head. In other words, I'll give you an example of this. Zizek, for example, critiques the idea of a people who have substantive roots. He says, no, this idea of having roots in a country or a nation, my God, it's pure ideology. Because why? Because a human subject, according to Zizek, is by nature defined by some kind of constitutive rootlessness, some constitutive gap that separates us from some organic social whole, and that our idea of roots is just some fantasy we have in our heads to cope with that fact. The problematic arrogance of what Zizek says here simply lies in the fact that he is making the assumption that when people speak about their roots, they are talking about annihilating this same constitutive gap. But what if, when we make reference to our roots, we're not talking about some closure of the gap between an individual and the organic social whole as some constitutive fantasy? What if the roots in question, to put them in Western philosophical terms, are precisely the way we are rooted in a specific gap from the social whole? So Zizek, for example, thinks he's wise when he says, subject constitutively is necessarily separated from from its whole. Okay, fine. But the way in which we are separated is something specific. So when we make reference to our roots, when we make reference to a specific nation or civilization or so on, we're just making reference to the specific way in which this is. We are presupposing that fact. All of this precise problem of the way Zizek makes the assumption, unjustifiably, about positive being, is where we can locate the origin of all of Zizek's problematic politics. Zizek has not arrived at the wisdom of the fact that the insight he has developed in philosophical terms is not just true for a philosophical subject. It is not just true for you, Slavoj Zizek. If, let's say, there is a constitutive gap in the real itself and of being itself, that is true for being in a way that is also beyond its philosophical articulation in thought. This precise relation also is exactly what defines material reality. The materiality and materialism then acquires even a different definition and a different meaning. What is material is not some naive notion of the real, and neither is it the materialism of pure difference and negativity, as Zizek would like to put it. Materialism would simply then just refer to the way in which the relations he describes are true. And this way is antecedent and comes first. Do you want to know what this means? It means before Slavoj Zizek is a philosopher, Slavoj Zizek is a Slovenian. You see? Slovenian, for example, national identity is more true philosophically than the specific form of philosophical enunciation arrived at by Zizek, by Slavoj Zizek. Now, to me, this opens up, again, positive being in a way that must necessarily go beyond the threshold of the Western logos. Why? Because Western logos is not just defined by, as I put it, the identity of difference. Also, Western logos is also defined precisely by the assumption that Zizek makes, that this identity of difference is the beginning. However, before there is an identity of difference, there is a way in which there is an identity of difference, out of which our abstract identity of difference is derivative as an abstraction from the reality. So it's not that we abstract from some substantive, wholesome reality an identity of pure difference. Here stands Heraclitus, who views the world constantly in motion and constantly in flux. So then he abstracts and derives this identity of pure difference as the truth of all being. Heraclitus, his short-sightedness only lies in the fact that the abstraction of the identity of difference, the abstraction of the logos, does not come from the straw man the logos made about nothingness. It, as a matter of fact, derives from a specific way in which there's a unity between identity and difference. So the insight Heraclitus had arrived at was not then reapplied to reality itself. Heraclitus, let's just say the West as we know it, the West is defined by ungratefulness. Ladies and gentlemen, the West is defined by ungratefulness. It's defined by an ungratefulness which refuses to respect how the thing that allowed you to arrive at the abstraction is not simply the opposite of the abstraction. It contains the deeper truth and wisdom of that abstraction itself, which is particular and therefore material. He would say his material reality is antecedent to his national identity. He may say that fracking is good. He may say that. But then he's going to support the West in Ukraine against Russia. So you tell me, he will say that, sure, but is it the truth? How can his material reality of his being be antecedent to his national identity when the material reality of his being already assumes particularity and particular form? Now, this, beyond this of the threshold of being I have just described to you, this is, as a matter of fact, what Dugin, Alexander Dugin, describes as chaos. In opposition to logos, Dugin insists on chaos. Most of you, when you hear the word chaos, are still going to be limited within the narrow horizon of logos. You are going to think of chaos as randomness. You're going to think of chaos as some structural instability of the logos itself, some kind of relation of the logos itself, some disorder, right? But chaos cannot be thought of disorder or structural relation, because this itself presupposes that logos is the privileged horizon of order itself, which is a false assumption. For Dugin, chaos is, in his own words, the maternal waters, the womb out of which logos is born. I will also give you a radical example of how this chaos is described in the history of the West. Ladies and gentlemen, it is none other than material reality. When Dugin speaks of chaos, he is talking about a material reality.
Had a sergeant in the army who loved Zizek. Good stream.
Thank you, Veyrak. Appreciate you. Very, I appreciate you. So this is for Dugin chaos. Therefore, Dugin's philosophy somehow is precisely, in a way, one step from Zizek. Just one step. Zizek exhausts the Western logos in the form of some paradoxical, he calls it a thing, less than nothing, that is pregnant with particular things. The particular things being themselves some self-relation of nothingness. But once we actually give justice to their particularity, not just justice, but antecedents to their particularity, where are we, ladies and gentlemen? We are in Dugin's geopolitics. We are in a specific analysis of different geopolitical realities, positive being. We are then on the side of positive being, particular Russian civilization, Chinese civilization, etc., of multipolarity. We are returned then to our mind is then oriented toward the possibility of a hypothetical other logos, another beginning, which somehow includes its origins in chaos. Not only includes its origins in chaos, but establishes a particular relationship to these origins in chaos. And this is basically what Dugin's his most mature project is defined as. It's in search of a dark logos, mapping, and he's like a huge, like 20-volume project he's on, mapping out the specific unique logos of different civilizations. So Dugin is on the side of positive being, and Zizek is on the side of negativity. Zizek will accuse Dugin of being insufficiently... Thank you, Anti-Sterner.
What Coach was for Hegel and Heidegger, Oz is for Zizek, the Hegelian, and Dugin, the Heideggerian.
Thank you, Sterner. That's very flattering. Very, very flattering. Yeah, in a way, infrared is it's a synthesis of Dugin and Zizek. Why? Because how do I sublate both Dugin and Zizek? Ready? This! Streaming. This is how I do it. For me, streaming is Zizekian. Streaming is Zizekian because it's about gaps and the constitutive difference and this kind of paradoxical parallax gap inherent in things between the observer and the streamer and yada yada yada, the inability to have some wholesome reality. But then it's also on the side of Dugin because it's also walking the talk in a sense, right? It's like I'm actually doing it instead of just talking about it, which is what Zizekian scholars do. Zizekian scholars just find different ways to talk and have discourse about Zizek instead of doing Zizek. Not in that sense, but instead of actually drawing out the conclusion of his thinking in some kind of way. Did you see this? You see the subreddit post mocking your Chinese website and Chinese viewers? Where? Our Reddit is dead. Okay, so where's the subreddit? Our Reddit has been dead for a long time. You want to know why? Because we're not a community of fucking Redditors. Where is it? Older Chinese drama about a Chinese man, Russian woman. Okay, I don't... You're gonna have to... Just show it to the mods, okay? Show it to the mods. Show it to the mods. Anyway,
Based.
Dugin brought geopolitics back after Western Marxism soyed out on it. The old Clausewitz CNMLs I grew up with all talked like Dugin all the time, reminding people of the primary contradiction.
yeah. So Zizek reproaches someone like Dugin with disgust. For Zizek, Dugin is extremely vulgar because Dugin, he is like insufficiently critical. Dugin believes in real particular things, which Zizek are ultimately only the fantastical way in which they enter our subjective horizon. But of course, when you understand Dugin and you read Dugin, you recognize when Dugin speaks of the great, whatever, Russian civilization, he's doing it with a sense of maturity, with his particularly non-Western ability to intuitively acknowledge a reality that is not reducible to the way we enjoy it. it's not reducible to the way it enters or dwells within our subjective horizon. It's a reality that is there. It's as much ability we can acknowledge as someone in the West may acknowledge nature. It's not reducible to the ways in which it imposes its... If anything, it's like a symptom that defines the multiplicity of our fantasies. It itself is not a fantasy or a constitutive fantasy of any kind of way. To me, the relation between Dugin and Zizek is the same as the relation between East and West. They don't necessarily exclude one and another, but they must be respected according to their own, let's just say, according to their own pretenses. Now, one problem maybe with Dugin is, my critique of Dugin probably is this, right? For me, Dugin also does not care about the particular concrete relations. Maybe he does, I don't know. Defining Western philosophical thought. For example, I'll just give you an example of this. When Dugin talks about a given philosophy or a given concept, of course, he's correct when he is making the argument, this is the essence of it, right? But he makes it seem like that's the same as having the same identity as it. So in other words, Dugin, for example, says things like, all politics contains a philosophy, for example. To me, the problem with saying something like this is not that politics does not contain the essence of philosophy, but that he is just assuming something about the logos that is unjustifiable. So to me, I'm not sure if Dugin can appreciate the bringing of Western logos to its final threshold. And to me, this is just evinced by the fact that he has not given much consideration, as far as I know, right? I could be wrong, to Hegel. Forget just Zizek, just to Hegel in general, and the significance of Hegel. So to me, there's a very specific Russian way in which Dugin responds to the West, which is somehow still caught within that same archaeo-modern structure he mentioned before. But to be fair, when Dugin searches for a particular Russian logos escaping the structure of archaeo-modernity, to me, I think he is correct, but I think it's not possible unless we can exhaust the Western logos through Hegel specifically. So that's just probably my criticism of Dugin. Talking about this. What the fuck? Oh, this one. Yeah, these are just cherry-picked comments. These are just cherry-picked comments. Most of the comments are very positive. You can go check yourself. But the Redditors on Destiny's Reddit are not gonna like see that. They're just gonna see this cherry-picked shit and whatever, guys. Look, you have to understand Lacan and Zizek to get this shit, right? They're living in their own fantasy. This is their constitutive fantasy. And it's a very specific bubble that maintains their psychological well-being, right? So don't disturb that habitat. Let them think what they want because they need it, or else they may do some harm to themselves or others, right? So they need it, right? If you're interested, you can go look on the video yourself and look at the comments. These are just cherry-picked negative comments. See, like he's showing comments with 5 likes, okay? So, yeah. Yeah, and it's also falsely translated. I think. Let me show this to Ezra. Let me show this to Ezra. I'm gonna just send it to him. I'm just gonna send it to him. Because he's the one who's in charge of that whole account. That's so weird. Actually, let me see. The fuck, man? So, let me check this out. Okay, let's check this out. Nope, it's not the right one. How many likes am I at? 44,000 for the Voss one. Yeah, how do I go to this channel? Right here. Yeah, let's check it out. Maybe the comments are overwhelmingly negative now.
Well, you're just talking.
So this has 43,000 views. Mongol, not okay. This dude's scolding talent is full. It's fully automatic. The logic is chaotic. I'm not stupid. Yeah, it doesn't say virgin. It says scumbag. And this guy's probably a fucking... Yeah, like, this is just a non-accurate translation. Like, yeah. Oh, they called you a virgin. Well, no, no, that's just fucking your own cope, right? Modern history of Europe is not less than Asia. Yeah, so, you know. Why do they say porn? It says cool movie, and this person translated that's porn. See how these, like, this is just like Western degeneracy on full display, right? Why would that be fucking porn, you know? So this person's, yeah, most of these comments are not negative. At least Anglo-Saxon finally surrendered. Look at this. Mongolia's brought Lenin technology to the West without far. Why didn't they show these comments? They just showed the ones that were negative. Some of these, yeah, what made pirates feel superior to Mongolia? Look at that. Nice job, good scolding. They don't show any of the fucking... I don't even see these negative comments. See, they're showing comments with, like, you have to search really hard for like, that have, like, 2 likes or some shit. To be fair, like, one of them was... So yeah, that's just super fucking... That's just cope, I guess. This is not an accurate... view of what the comments are, okay? So yeah. But apparently they also show the Vosh one. I don't know why they're like doing shit. With the channel. I mean, why do you give a fuck? I don't know. Wait, yeah, nobody calls me a coomer. What the fuck? They're not even talking about me when they're talking about the Anglo-Saxon. They're talking about the guy I'm arguing with. See, they think, oh, I think both are Anglo-Saxons. Yeah, they're not fucking talking about me. Okay. It's so crazy how they're interested. I never would have expected they cared about that. I think they're trying to be too universal. Okay, let me continue. Guys, by the way, when I end this video, and I want someone in the comments to just get all the timestamps of the lecture. So, like, get it where it starts, and then get it after the pause. So we could skip the pause, and then get it after this detour I just went to. So, continuing. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna just try to wrap this up. My thesis is that, to me, somehow, it's Marx who unites Zizek, the apogee of the logos of dialectics, the apogee of dialectics within the frame of the Western logos, and then Dugin, who stands for a pure chaos beyond the threshold of the same logos. And to me, Marx accomplishes the unity of both, the synthesis of both, in the form of Marx's humanism, specifically which privileges the significance of the proletariat. So for me, Marx, who exhausts the Hegelian philosophy, which is the apogee of the dialectic under the Western logos, which stands for some minimum of positive being, which Marx first identifies as proletariat. But now I want to propose a kind of hermeneutic device in order to understand the history of Marxism and the history of communism. The only real critique of Marx and Engels that makes sense, and you know what? We're doing Microsoft Paint, okay? The only one that makes sense to me is this one. This one. So in this critique, here you have Hegel. Let's just call H, Hegel, right? And then Marx and Engels immediately privilege the first instance of the material form that impresses them phenomenally outside of Hegel, which is what? Proletariat in industrial prole, UK, right? Sorry, let's just England. What Marx and Engels probably got wrong, probably they didn't get it wrong, because they were the whole course of their life is defined by a correcting of the problem. They do not try to begin here at the outer ridges of the materiality, the antecedent materiality here. This is Russian Mer commune. If they began here, they would have predicted the October Revolution in 1848. They only predicted at the end of their life, right? But from the proletariat represents the first, let's say, hatching of the logos out of a new logos out of chaos. So to me, Marx is the thinker of a new logos. His logos being in the form of his humanism. Dugin says that his philosophy of chaos wants to begin with the principle of inclusiveness. But this is precisely what Marx accomplishes. Marx accomplishes this inclusion of all of philosophy in all of its might into the background of the material relations of production, human history in its actual material reality. But also, materiality is not just relations to production. It is also the form that relations of production take in national, civilizational, even religious, etc., ways, which are themselves marking definite material realities. So to me, there's a new beginning for Marx in the synthesis of Zizek and Dugan. Also, as a point of understanding Dugin's inclusiveness, idea of a principle of inclusiveness, this is also Marx's humanism. Marxist humanism is an inclusivist principle. Why? Because Marx does not impose a logos of humanity. Marx says humanity is the fruit of our investigation of the world of man, which is something Dugin is also doing. Dugin says in his project, In Search of a Dark Logos, I want to discover a given civilization, a given form of humanity. I will make no assumptions about it, but instead begin from a philosophy of chaos which operates under the principle of inclusion, not logocentric exclusion, which means I will begin with the a priori assumption this human reality is meaningful in the way in which it is embedded in its own mother chaos, its own motherland. Each people have a specific, unique relation to their own motherland, for example. So it's a different way of putting it. So here is how to understand the history of communism from Marx's discovery of human logos. Human logos, which, by the way, is the synthesis and unity of logos, dialectics, as they are exhausted within the auspice of the Western logos, and all of the complex particular relations defining it thereof. In Hegel's speculative philosophy, somehow now re-embedded into this material world of relations of production. Now, Western Marxists are trying to make the relations of production some kind of philosophical transcendental horizon by which we mediate the relationship between thought and being. They're trying to kind of turn Marx into this philosopher who simply substitutes the various concepts and so on of philosophy with something called relations of production. Only someone like Dugin can allow us to appreciate what Marx means by material relations of production outside of the horizon of the Western logos, of idealism, and of philosophy itself. What Marx means by relations to production is the real relations of production. Humanity in its actual reality. Which means what for Marx at the end of his life? It means the Russian mir, the Russian commune, inherited from the past. We didn't contrive this philosophically, right? But that's our reality. It's just in the same way the proletariat is, initially for Marx, the industrial proletariat of England. Then it's the Russian peasant of the mir commune, who becomes for Marx a revolutionary subject, somehow. Relations to production do not operate under the standard of the Western logos. This dialectical materialism is already beyond the Western logos. It's a return to Mother Chaos. The difference I have with Dugin is that Mother Chaos is not chaotic. Mother Chaos is not enough. That's just a kind of undialectical materialism to me. So, on this note, I have to conclude today's lecture. Let's conclude it with this, though.
For me, at least, you who are protesting in Russia, you are Now, not just some abstract internationalists.
Oh, he's talking about Russians protesting against Putin. I thought okay. Anyway, I don't want to listen to his dick riding. Anyway, guys, I'm going to have to see you tomorrow. So, I'll see you tomorrow, guys.